Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Now in today's video guys, I am going to be finishing off the year by going over every single movie that I watched that was released this year. Obviously there was probably tons of other movies that I watched this year, but these are going to be specifically movies that were released this year that I watched. Where am I going to be putting them on the tier list? Now as you guys know, there were a lot of movies that I missed for movie reviews because I did not start doing the movie review or doing movie reviews for new releases until about halfway through the year. So you guys missed a lot of commentary or whatever, and you have no idea my thoughts on the film or whatever. Regardless if I started the movie reviews early or not, I still would have done this video. But that's why I'm so excited for this video, and I think it's going to be a great way to end the year. I just finished watching my 20th movie. There are going to be 20 movies to put on this tier list. I know for, extreme movie critics or whatever, people who are really into it, that's probably not a lot. But it's certainly, I would say, above average for most people. I've seen pretty much every single one of these movies in theaters, except for one. I think there was one that I didn't see in theaters. So, yeah, I had to go to the theater 19 times this year to see every single one of these movies, and I'm really excited to do this tier list for you guys today. I hope you guys had a good Christmas, and yeah, we're just going to be finishing off the year with this. I'm recording this a couple days before New Year's Eve, but I'm probably going to be releasing it on New Year's Eve before 2023, so yeah, as you can see, these are the 20 movies that I have and that I watched this year. But before we do that, just to add in a little bit of interesting commentary, there were a lot of movies that I missed seeing. Some of them just because I didn't have the time to, or others they just swiped out of theaters really fast. Some of them didn't play in my local theater, which I was kind of sad about. So yeah, there were definitely a lot of movies that I really really wish I could have seen, but I just missed the mark. So first movie that I thought about seeing, this one I did not miss. I had the full opportunity to see this movie, but I just didn't really feel like seeing it. I mean, it'd be a good way to kill 2 hours, to be honest. Watching Jackass, but I just thought, I've watched shows that do similar things, and I don't really have that much interest in it. I think I would have had a good time regardless, but there were other movies coming out at the time. I believe Uncharted was the main one that I was more interested in seeing, so that's kind of the story behind that. Then there was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one, which I believe I had the streaming service for to watch this movie, but I heard so much negativity around it that I just avoided it. Then there was Dog. This was a very popular movie when it came out. A lot of people seeing it, and I thought it could probably be a wholesome movie to watch. I like the lead actor, forget what his name is, but ended up not going to see it again because there were just other movies that were on my priority list. Then there was Ambulance, which again just kind of got caught in the middle of other movies that I'd rather see, but it definitely looked like a very intriguing movie. I think I would have really enjoyed watching this car chase movie, and I heard some decently good things about it from everybody. So I think I would have enjoyed watching this heist car chase movie, whatever it was. I think I would have really enjoyed it. I like some of the main actors and things like that, so yeah, another unfortunate one that I missed. Then there was The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Now, Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors. So again, it just got caught in in the middle of other movies that were kind of on my priority list. And it also went out of theaters really quickly. I believe I was going to see it eventually, but then it just got out of theaters like within the first 3 weeks, I think. So really unfortunate, but I'm a really big Nicolas Cage fan. I did get the poster for this movie, so maybe sometime in the future I'll, buy the DVD or whatever, watch it on a streaming service or whatever. But yeah, I'm a really big Nicolas Cage fan, so I think I would have had a lot of fun with this. Then there was Lightyear, which I was going to see. I was planning to see this movie, but I heard, again, a lot of bad stuff around it. And I'm sure I'm sure a lot of you probably have in mind what you're thinking why I didn't watch this movie, and no, it wasn't because of that. I thought to myself, it's not Tim Allen as Lightyear. I don't really like the plot that they're going with in this movie, and it just doesn't seem interesting. If they would have made it more in a Toy Story format kind of thing, where it was like a Lightyear backstory and not like Lightyear's story in the actual movie, it's like really confusing their storyline that they went with this movie, where it's like it's Lightyear's backstory if he was an actual toy. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know why they wouldn't have just went with a Lightyear backstory as him in a toy in the Toy Story universe, and you could have had Tim Allen casted as Lightyear again, and I think it would have been a hell of a lot better. So just the plot format, everything like that, just kind of drew me away from it, and also just the negativity that went around with it just kind of pushed me further away. This movie died down really quickly in theaters, and did not make as much money as I think they were anticipating. It really did bomb. So yeah, Lightyear, another unfortunate one. Then there was Elvis, and I heard a lot of good stuff around this, and I'm not a big Elvis fan by any means. I know a few Elvis songs, but I'm not that person who buys vinyl records, gets posters of Elvis or whatever. I'm not somebody who has grown up with Elvis. Obviously, I'm not old enough to have done that. But I heard some good stuff about this movie, and I thought that the plot behind it was kind of interesting. I kind of wanted to see how he sort of, drove to be in a bad spot, and how he, how his career just unfortunately ended up closing really early. So this is another one where I was going to watch it. There were other movies on my priority list though, and it just skipped out of theaters too early for me. But it was certainly a very popular movie. But I was way too late for this movie before I decided. You know what? It would be probably a good thing to watch this movie, because I think by the time this movie got out of theaters, which was like late July in my theater, I didn't really have any movies to watch at the time, so I was like, let's go watch Elvis, and then it was already out of theaters. So unfortunate. And then there's Fall, which I never got to see because it never played in any of the theaters near me, so missed out on that one. From what I heard, it wasn't that good, but I still would have liked to see it. I think the concept was kind of interesting. It had Jeffrey Dean Morgan in it, and I really like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, so really unfortunate, because I definitely would have seen it. I didn't really have anything else to see at the time, because this movie came out in like August, so really unfortunate. Then there was Bullet Train. Again, this is another one. I'm not like a huge Brad Pitt fan. I don't really know of a lot of movies that Brad Pitt has played in that I have seen. But I heard a lot of good things about it. They're like, you should watch it. It's a really good action-filled movie. I think you'd really enjoy it. But I just never really, it just never really piqued my interest enough. But I definitely considered it, and I know it was a popular movie and was decently successful. Then there was Barbarian, which I was going to see, but at the time I was undergoing surgery and all that, so I was not in the mood to be going to the movies at the time, especially with not being able to eat any food or anything like that. So, Barbarian, I heard some really good things about this movie. I really wish I would have gotten to see it, but at the time I was undergoing surgery and everything like that, and that is the same thing that goes with Smile. I would have really liked to see this movie. I heard some kind of mixed things about Smile. But just again missed the opportunity. So there were definitely a few horror movies that I missed out on this year that I should have frickin' seen, but I just missed it because of unfortunate situations. Then there was Devotion, and this one I literally was driven on seeing. I had made plans for it, and it's another one where it just got out of theaters too early. It wasn't doing too well in my region. And I know it really didn't make a whole lot of money at the box office, but I wanted to see it because I enjoyed Top Gun, and I'll talk about that later. And so I just wanted to see a kind of another similar movie and it has Glenn Powell. It's about the Korean War, so it piqued my interest, but it freaking slipped out of theaters too early. And I think that's because Avatar had been coming out at the time, and a bunch of other movies here in December, and so it just kind of got overshadowed. And then Puss in Boots. Now I might see this in the future. I don't know. But I'm probably not going to be seeing it this year, so maybe in January I'll watch this movie, but as of right now, it's not on my list. I didn't like the first Puss in Boots movie. I like the Shrek movies, but I didn't like the first Puss in Boots movie. I've heard some good things about Puss in Boots, but it just hasn't really piqued my interest yet. So I might see it. Don't get me wrong, but as of right now, it's not on my list. So yeah, those are all the movies that I thought about seeing. These are all the movies that I didn't freaking see this year. So yeah, that's a big block, but I had to put them all away so that we could get down here to the good stuff, the movies that I did actually see. So first up, that it was released in January, and my God, this was so long ago when I watched this movie. I can't believe it. We got Scream. The Scream Legacy sequel is going to be going up in the A tier. I think this was probably the best horror movie that I watched this year by far. Yeah, I think it was the best. Well, maybe. I just remembered of another one that I watched. One of the best horror movies that I watched this year. It was really, really good. When I heard rumors about them making another sequel um, to Scream, I thought, why? You know, just why? And now they're making a Scream 6, so I'm like even more like, what the hell are we doing? Why are we doing this? So Scream 6 better live up to it to my standards, because I'm questioning why they're making a Scream 6. Neve Campbell's supposed to not be coming back or whatever. That's besides the point. This movie managed to surprise or exceed my expectations. It definitely surprised me because I thought, they already kind of made a quote unquote legacy sequel in a way with the 2011 Scream 4. But that one was, kind of more for like remakes and stuff because a lot of remakes were coming out at the time for classic slasher movies. And so this one is supposed to really be the legacy sequel, where in the past few years, yeah, there have been definitely a lot of legacy sequels, not just to horror movies, but really to like all types of genres. They've been making a lot of legacy sequels with bringing back the original actors and all that kind of stuff. So they actually managed to do a good job at incorporating another idea into a Scream movie and making it work for its concept. And I think everybody did a really, really good job in this movie. Sure, Neve Campbell and, a few of the other main characters from the original Scream didn't really get a whole lot of screen time or whatever. They weren't really the main focus. But I kind of liked that in this case because I would have rather them trusted their new characters that they established in the Scream sequel than having them just push the legacy characters on and basically run the whole show. So I like that they trusted the main characters, and they did a good job. Jenna Ortega, the main character, forget her name, but all of them I think did a really good job. And yeah, it was a really, really solid Scream sequel. Probably, I think in my ranking I made it like the second or third best, but in Scream terms, that it's still really, really good. There's not really any bad Scream sequel that I know of. So yeah, this was a really, really solid addition. And I don't think there was anything else I was gonna say. So yeah, the Scream 5 Legacy sequel goes in the A tier. Then we have this movie. And I can't say I regret watching this movie. This movie was so interesting, and I'm sure a lot of you are like, what the hell are you talking about? What is this movie? If you don't know, this movie is called Moonfall, and it is the stupidest, best movie I have ever seen in my entire life. In my entire life, if not at least in 2022. This movie, I don't even know where to put it on my list because there's times where this is the literal worst movie in the best way possible, and there's other times where it is I have no idea. Moonfall it's something else. I mean, if I'm being serious, I would probably put it in the B tier. But I'm gonna make a special tier just for Moonfall, and it's actually gonna go right up at the top. And let's make it blue to fit the theme. Oh, wait, wrong one. I'm wasting my time here. But, yeah, let's make it blue to fit the theme, and we're gonna name this one... We're gonna name this one Moonfall, because Moonfall deserves its own tier for being so freaking unique. And I was actually... I'm telling you guys, right, I'm being, like, straight up. I was going to make a whole video on this movie, not as, like, a movie review, but as, like, a talk about just how insane this movie is. And Moist Critical did, like, a whole video on this, and I saw it, and I was like, dude, you have the same exact thoughts as I do with this movie. This movie is so wacky. It is so wacky. And I saw the trailer for it, and I was actually intrigued by it, which is why I seen it. I was like, you know, I kind of want to see a disaster movie. I kind of like these space disaster movies. I like The Martian, so I think I'll enjoy Moonfall. And I went into it, and it was nothing of what it was expecting. I thought it was going to be some generic disaster movie, but it ended up being the stupidest, greatest thing I have ever seen in my life. It was so stupid, but so great at the same time. So for those of you who don't know, Moonfall, basically, it's about this kid who, when he was a kid, there was this mysterious accident, which we see at the beginning of the movie, where this astronaut mysteriously disappeared, and there was, you know, the two witnesses, there was two other astronauts with him. They don't really discuss what happened, because they're not even really sure what happened. But as we see, it's like this mysterious force or whatever. And basically the kid who grew up, we get like a time jump in the movie after that first opening scene. And he turns into this like conspiracy theorist who suspects that the moon is like this giant megastructure. And so he tries to convince the NASA scientists who were on that trip that the moon is this megastructure, and it is what caused this astronaut to disappear. There was this mysterious force, and so they end up getting convinced, and they go on this trip, and basically they find out that, yes, all of this was true. The moon is this megastructure that has been created by aliens. I know, this sounds so weird, but just bear with me here. This is actually the plot of the movie. It's this megastructure that has been created by, not aliens, but by aliens. But basically, the megastructure was created so that it could sustain future human life, because AI, millions of years ago, got so powerful that it started turning in on people and destroying basically all of human life. So what the aliens did, or I guess really humans, or the like ancient humans, they tossed out these megastructures far into the universe to try to keep the aliens away from destroying the rest of humankind or whatever. And so the mysterious force is the AI trying to destroy the moon. So they end up saving the moon, basically, and destroying the AI that has taken over. And basically, at the ending of the movie, yeah, the world has gone to absolute crap. Like, Earth itself has been taking a big dump on. Things have fell on it from the moon, all this kind of stuff. But the moon has now been saved. Human life has now been saved, and, like, you know, the outer shell of the moon has taken off, so it's like this big sphere thing that it's like this really weird structure. And, you know, on the surface, you probably think, well, that doesn't seem that, you know, I mean, it's like a crazy plot, but, like, what makes it so crazy? It's the stuff that happens in between and what the actors do that makes this movie, like, hard to take seriously sometimes. And I don't know if like, they're taking the movie seriously, or if they know that they're not taking it seriously, but that's, like, the whole point, that they're trying to make it this goofy disaster movie. I have no idea, but I really got a kick out of this movie. I bought it on DVD because I wanted to watch it in the future just to get some more shits and giggles out of it. And, yeah, I really enjoyed Moonfall. So if I was being really honest here, I would put it in the B tier. But because of how unique this movie is, I'm going to be leaving it up in this top tier. Specifically just for Moonfall. Because at times it can be literally the greatest, baddest, stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life. So, yeah, Moonfall, very unique one. Let's get on to the next movie. Next up, we have Uncharted. And, you know, I want to be generous with this movie, but to be honest, it's going to go in the C tier. It's probably going to end up being at the top of the C tier. But I actually did have pretty low expectations going into this movie. I watched it regardless because I know about the Uncharted games. I played a little bit of it. I wasn't, I didn't play all of the games or whatever, but I knew a little bit about it. I knew the basic storyline behind it. And I had very low expectations because I was like, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, they're very talented actors, but they are not fit for being these specific characters. And I think Tom Holland should honestly just stick with Spider-Man. I think he's made a big career with that, and any other movie that he plays in, I just can't think of anybody else but the Tom Holland Spider-Man. The big problem though is not really Tom Holland. It's just the fact that he's just too young. Obviously, Nathan Drake, the main character of Uncharted, is like in his mid 30s, and then Mark Wahlberg, who's like in his 40s, playing Sully, who's supposed to be in his 60s, it just doesn't work. But I think they did a decent job. It's just like the unfortunate nature of it. I understand why they might have chose these actors, but they're way too young. And then now there might be a sequel for this and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't want any more. Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, I like them. They're charming, but they just don't work for these characters. And it just ended up being a very mediocre video game movie. Much like a lot of other video game movies, they just don't seem to turn out very well most of the time. Just because of bad casting choices, bad plot decisions that, whatever. This movie doesn't really do much of that, but just bad casting overall. And I mean, sure, it's got some good action thrills in it and stuff like that, but it's a movie that you're gonna watch once and you're gonna forget about it. You're not gonna watch this movie again. You're gonna watch it, you're gonna forget about it, you're never gonna watch it again. Um, and that's just kind of how I feel about it. It's just like any other video game portrayal movie that I've seen. It reminds me a lot of the Resident Evil sequel that came out last year, in terms of the casting choices, and just it's just complete mediocrity. It gets pretty good at the end with the action and things like that. I think the humor is decent enough. I like the ending. I think it's kind of witty and funny, but overall, it's extremely mediocre. And I don't know why they would choose. I mean, they probably thought, nobody except for nerds who have played the Uncharted games in the early 2000s are going to want to watch this movie. So let's put in Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg and attract a bunch of people who have no idea what this movie derives from, so that we can make money. And they made it a decent amount of money. I mean, $400 million out of the box office isn't too bad. But I don't think sacrificing your because, like, you have all these anime movies that came out this year, and you know they don't sacrifice the fan base's intent just so that they can make a few extra bucks. And I'm not saying that they use Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg to make a few extra bucks, but I don't know. They just don't really work well for the two main leads that we have in this movie. And despite all that, when you forget all of that, it's just your average video game action thriller movie, as I see it. So Uncharted, really unfortunate. I want to like this movie more. Like, if I was being really generous, I would put this at the B tier, but I'm gonna leave it at the top of the C tier because it's like extremely, extremely mediocre in my opinion. So Uncharted goes in the C tier. Next up, we got The Batman, and some people are gonna freaking hate me for this decision, because I'm sure a lot of you would have The Batman all the way up in S tier, probably one of your favorite movies of the year, if not your absolute favorite movie of the year. But for me, it goes in the C tier. I'm not a big fan of it. And I'm not somebody who's like, completely oblivious to the Batman or whatever, or, has never watched any of the Batman movies or whatever. I just genuinely did not enjoy this movie. I've watched a few of the 90s Batmans. I've seen clips of The Dark Knight and, those ones. Mainly, the most of the DC content that I have seen are clips of the DC movies and the 60s Batman series. I really enjoyed that. I've watched the whole series It's like the only thing that I like out of DC. Obviously, DC is looking to get some improvements with James Gunn taking over and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully they'll do all these characters justice again, including Batman. At least for me, I know a lot of people love this movie, but I'm just not a big fan of it. And like I said, yeah, I'm not the biggest DC fan. I'm not the biggest Batman fan. Um, um, and I didn't just watch this movie because it's another superhero movie, and I heard a lot of good stuff about it and all that kind of stuff. I was genuinely kind of interested. I was like, it's doing pretty well. Why don't I give it a try? I haven't really seen many other DC movies. I know most of the Batman movies don't really tie into the DC directly, so it's not like going to spoil anything for me or anything like that. So I went into it, and I knew it was 3 hours long, so I was like, oh Jesus Christ, this better be a good movie. But it just ended up being very slow, sluggish, and just quite frankly boring for me. I really didn't enjoy it. I thought the Riddler was a good villain. Um, a very very dark portrayal of Riddler in this movie that I really really liked. But other than that, it was just the theme, the atmosphere just amplified the slow sluggishness and all that for in this movie. I think this movie is too long, especially towards the end. Like the last 45 minutes to half hour to 45 minutes of this movie just drags along way too much. And I didn't like. I think it's Catwoman in this movie. I didn't like her portrayal of Catwoman in this movie. Patrick, what's the dude's name? Richard Patterson, the guy who plays Batman. Talented actor. Liked him in Twilight, but as Batman, I don't know. Not a huge fan. So I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but just it's like for me, it was like they were trying to make this movie like make me bored. So, just bored for 3 hours while watching this movie. It just to me it feels like that. And I could totally understand why you love this movie. I'm sure, like, maybe it was just an off day. Maybe I was just really bored that day. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood to watch a 3 hour movie and, like, really get into the plot or everything. But I just could not get into this movie. And so that's why it goes into the C tier for me. And I could totally understand why you would have this as one of your favorite movies of the year. I'm sure there was something that I missed that was, like, really good with this movie. But, in my personal experience, I'm not going to watch this movie again. That's for sure, to find out how actually good it is. So, for me, it's sticking in the C tier. Next up, we got Morbius, which may or may not be one of the worst movies that I watched this year. And it's not as bad as people say it is. I really like the memes around it, but the memes make it seem a little bit worse than it really is. It's still going into the D tier. It may be one of the only movies that's going into the D tier on this list. But I don't think it's terrible. I don't think there's anything bad that this movie does. It's just so forgettable. It's so bland. It's boring. And I'm gonna compare this to Batman. Obviously, people are gonna be offended. Why would you compare the greatest movie of 2022 to this? But in my case, in my experience, at least the Batman, for being boring for me, I could see some of the really good stuff that they did in the movie that separates it from being forgettable and bland and all that kind of stuff. But Morbius just does not try at all. They go with the most bland, forgettable, boring superhero. Well, I guess he's not really a superhero. He's like the anti-hero, because that's like the new craze in the superhero movies now. But they just go with the most bland, forgettable anti-hero, whatever you want to call it, backstory in this movie. And there's certain parts where you just can't tell what the hell's going on. Like just skipping right to the final battle, there's certain parts where you cannot tell what is going on because it's too dark. There's things like close up on the screen that are really black. I like Jared Leto as an actor. I think he works well for Morbius, but like I said, this movie is completely bland and forgettable. And you would think that they would make this movie a lot better with having so much time to make this movie and how many delays that they had and everything like that. But it ended up just being one of the most forgettable superhero movies, or whatever you want to call it, Marvel-related movies of the year. And it's unfortunate because when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, I've never heard of this character before, but it seems kind of intriguing. I haven't really seen a vampire Marvel character yet, so let's give it a try. I may not enjoy it, but let's give it a try. It's a Marvel movie, and it just I was already nervous after like the first day because I watched this movie pretty early on, but I was already nervous within the first couple of days going to watch this movie because of all of the bad stuff that I heard about it. I really didn't think it was going to tank so bad. I thought it was actually going to do pretty decent. I thought a lot of people were going to give this movie a try, see it, and possibly enjoy it. And I think if this movie actually ended up being good, it could have done a decent job. I don't think it would have been super successful just because not a lot of people know about Morbius. It's not really an MC, direct to MCU movie. And Jared Leto, he's not really the super popular actor. Um, so yeah, it just again very bland, very boring, very forgettable, and I kind of admittedly want to see more of Morbius so that they can kind of improve off of him and stuff like that. I'm excited for the future Spider-Man stuff that they're doing after No Way Home and stuff like that. It's unfortunate that after getting the great movie of Spider-Man No Way Home that we got, that were followed up with Morbius, who's this other Spider-Man villain, and we get just sent, we could just get delivered this pile of bland and boring, superhero or Marvel content and stuff like that. But I actually do kind of want to see more of Morbius and more of Vulture. I'm kind of intrigued to see how they continue with that, and I hope they do improve on it. I don't think this movie, again, don't think it as bad as people give it or give it crap for. But what brings it really far down for me is that it is just super forgettable, and there is absolutely no reason why I would ever watch this movie again. Because it would just be a waste of 2 hours or however long this movie is. I think it was around 2 hours. So yeah, Morbius. It may or may not be the only movie in the D tier. Surprisingly. Next up, we got Sonic 2. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. It's probably gonna be on the lower end of the B tier once we get all the movies, other movies added in. I did like this movie better than the first Sonic. I thought it was certainly an improvement. We obviously get the same villain as last time in this movie, and I think it worked well. I think having Doctor whatever his name is as like a two-part villain, I thought that worked well, and they obviously are planning on making presumably a trilogy with the final villain it being Shadow. So that's kind of exciting. Gets you something excited for. Yeah, I thought it was a decent improvement from the first Sonic, and maybe that was just because we had more characters, obviously more side characters like Knuckles. I really liked Idris Elba's portrayal of Knuckles. I thought it was really, really funny. And then obviously you got Tails as another side character who I thought did a good job. And so, yeah, maybe it's just because we had more characters, more, humor, more fun to be had with. But like I said, pretty simple, not a whole lot to go into it. I'm not a huge Sonic fan. I know a lot of kids, I'm sure, got a kick out of this movie. So yeah, it's a very light-hearted movie for me. I wasn't ever going to be offended by this movie or anything like that if it was bad. So there's really not a whole lot for me to talk about. The final battle was good. Yeah, like I said, I thought it was a solid improvement from the first Sonic, and the first Sonic was good. So this movie is even better. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and not much to say. Next up, we got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is going to be a tough one to rank, but overall, I think it is deserving of the A tier. Below Scream, however, because Scream exceeded my expectations, whereas Doctor Strange fell a little bit short of my expectations. I was definitely one of those people who thought that this movie was going to be cameo city. I thought there was going to be cameo after cameo in this movie, and it ended up not being that. And I'm actually kind of thankful for that. I think if this movie was just cameo after cameo, it would not be very good. And obviously, we got plenty of other times to have cameos for new characters with the multiverse being introduced. and I'm sure that Marvel and all the producers are going to utilize all their characters that they have in their arsenal to generate as much revenue as they want. So you just got to be patient. So yeah, it did fall short of my expectations, but it makes sense. I definitely can see why this movie wasn't just full on cameo city. You had your little scene where there was a few cameos. Basically, the main thing was introducing the X-Men characters and saying X-Men's coming up, so just wait. And so you got that little bit of it, and it was exciting. I really liked Professor X's cameo in this movie. I thought it was really cool. That kind of, how do you want to say it? That sort of, I don't frickin' know the word for it right now, but that little interaction between Scarlet Witch and whatchamacallit, Professor X in this movie, I thought was really, really cool. And overall, it may not, it may have fell short of my expectations a little bit, but there were some things that I didn't expect to be really good in this movie. There were some unexpected bonuses. So despite not getting cameos, there were some other things that I really liked, and I probably would have enjoyed more. Which is, Sam Raimi was the director of this movie, and they're in the middle portion for a small amount of time, specifically when Scarlet Witch is killing off the Illuminati and everything like that. You get a small portion where you just get full-on Evil Dead 2 Sam Raimi style, and it is just really awesome. I've never seen that in the MCU ever, and it was really dark, and it was really awesome, and I frickin' loved it. Yeah, is it kind of sad that they just basically show all these characters and they just waste them with Scarlet Witch murdering them? Yes, but did it make for some good content? Absolutely. I freaking loved it, and I wish Sam Raimi got to go all out in this movie, but they got to maintain that PG-13 rating, I suppose. But overall, I really like that. Scarlet Witch being the villain, I don't know. I feel like they could have found a different way to make her a villain in some other movie, maybe some bigger movie. I feel like putting it in a Doctor Strange movie just makes it seem more smaller scale, when obviously, Scarlet Witch and her powers and everything like that can be much, much more bigger scale. I mean, they've made her extremely powerful in the MCU. So I feel like they could have done it with a sort of bigger scale MCU movie than a Doctor Strange movie. Because what I was really hoping to see in this movie was, I'm sure a lot of other people were expecting Scarlet Witch to be the villain because they watched WandaVision. I didn't watch WandaVision, so I didn't really expect that. I was really hoping that it was going to be evil Doctor Strange being the villain in this movie. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but we did get one small scene with evil Doctor Strange from the Multiverse, and it was awesome. It was beautiful to watch as well. It was like, how do you want to say it? It was kind of bringing back all of the great elements of the first Doctor Strange, with just the kaleidoscope, weird cinematography that's also beautiful at the same time. It's like really weird, but it's really beautiful at the same time. So I really liked that small scene that we got with evil Doctor Strange. At least they didn't rip us off completely, but I really did enjoy that small scene. And I definitely think this movie was worth going super early for. I watched this movie on premiere night because I didn't want any spoilers for any potential cameos that were coming out or anything like that. And I definitely think it lived up to the hype overall. A little bit disappointing, but I think it was worth watching it super early to avoid spoilers and stuff like that. And so overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie, and it goes up at the A tier. Next up, we got Top Gun Maverick, and oh boy, I'm sure not a lot of people were expecting me to be talking about this movie, because I'm going to be honest, I did not know about Top Gun until this year, and I am so glad that I watched this movie. This is going up at the S tier. It is one of the best, I won't say if it is the best, but one of the best movies that I have watched this year. This movie was so I'll just say it. This was the absolute best movie that I watched this year. It was so good, and it deserved all the revenue that it got. Like I said, I had never heard of Top Gun until this movie was coming out. mom wanted to see it, and I was like, Top Gun, what the hell is that about? I was like, I don't really want to see it, but I'll get you the free tickets for it. And then I started to hear some of the good stuff about it. I saw a few clips, just going into the theater to check how many people were and everything like that. I went in there and I was like, this looks like some pretty good action. I think I want to give this movie a try. I heard so much positivity about it, and it took me like 2.5 months to finally say, yeah, sure, I'll watch it. And it was still in theaters because this movie was going on for about like 5 months after its release in my movie theater. That's how popular it was. And so in like mid-August, I finally watched this movie, and I do not regret it. This was an incredible experience, and there wasn't even a lot of people in my movie theater. There were maybe like I want to say probably 8 other people in the movie theater with me, and I really wish it would have been a full theater when I watched this movie. But it was still an incredible experience. Like I said, I've never heard of Top Gun before this year, and this movie was so good. And the unique thing about this movie for me, and from my personal experience, was seeing all those clips of this movie before watching it, and not really understanding like the emotional impact of those scenes while in that theater, and not seeing the full movie yet, and then going into the movie and rewatching those specific clips and seeing, now I get it. Now, and now that emotional impact really hit in. Specifically, it was that final scene where Maverick is talking with Rooster, and he's saying, thank you for saving my life, and he's like, it's what my dad would have done. That hit so hard when I finally realized what that scene meant, because I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just like, we never really heard of the guy's dad in this movie, but maybe it's just a thing to throw in there to make it more emotionally impactful. But then when you watch this movie and you hear all the background and all that kind of stuff, you really understand what he is saying in that. And that was the unique thing for me in this movie, is when rewatching those scenes, was just understanding the emotional impact behind those specific scenes. And so Top Gun Maverick, it had a unique personal impact on me, and I really enjoyed it. Obviously, the all of the fighter pilot sequences and all that was really great. Had some really good action, and for being an amazing blockbuster, the plot was very simple. Even for a sequel, I think the plot was extremely simple, very self-explanatory, even for somebody who has never heard of Top Gun before. And just very simple setting. You got a new set of characters that he's training in this movie, and kind of the main focus or focal point of this movie is that one of the younger ones that he's training in this movie is the son of his former crewmate who passed away in the first movie. And it's just, again, it's a very simple plot, setup, everything like that, and it's so effective. It worked so well, and this was an amazing summer blockbuster, an amazing joyride, and the soundtrack was great. I loved it. Top Gun Maverick for me is my favorite movie of the year, and I think the best movie of the year. So it definitely is deserving of that S tier. Next up, we got Jurassic World Dominion, and if I was being very generous, I would probably put this at the top of the C tier, but I'm honestly gonna put it in the D tier, above Morbius though. This movie was not very good. Like I said, if I was being very generous, and I was like, it was a fun 2.5 hours, and I'm not a huge Jurassic World fan, so I'll put it up at the C tier. But no, it didn't even manage to be enjoyable, because the focus wasn't even on the dinosaur carnage. It wasn't even on the dinosaurs getting loose and they're all throughout the planet now. What are we gonna do? It was on locusts and like government espionage and government corruption and all this kind of stuff, and it just made for a really boring movie, to be honest. I mean, there were a few scenes with the dinosaurs that were interesting, but the final battle certainly didn't live up to what it should have been, and just the whole plot as a whole just shouldn't have been what it was. The main characters that came back, I don't have as much connection with them because, like I said, I'm not a huge Jurassic World fan, Jurassic Park fan, so didn't really care for them coming back. But sure, whatever. But yeah, Jurassic World Dominion, just extremely forgettable movie. There were some people. There were, in fact, it still managed to have a pretty good audience score despite the negative stuff that I've heard about this movie. It's very forgettable for me. It's not even it's not even at least like enjoyable where you can just kind of turn off your brain, forget about like all of the lazy stuff that they do in this movie. It's not even at least enjoyable. And that's what brings it down to the D tier. Because if it was at least enjoyable, kind of like Uncharted, I probably would have had it near Uncharted, if not above Uncharted. But because it's not even that, it's gonna go at the top of the D tier. I really had hope for this movie. I was really excited. I was like, come on, let's get some redemption after Fallen Kingdom with all of the dinosaurs being loose and everything like that. And it just starts off at a slow start and never really reaches its destination that I was hoping for. So, Jurassic World Dominion goes at the D tier. Next up, we got The Black Phone, which I think this was the most surprising movie of the year, if not one of the most surprising movies of the year for me. Yeah, this movie really, really surprised me. It is going to go up in the A tier, actually probably above Scream, to be honest with you. Just because of how surprising, how much this movie surprised me. Because with Scream, I kind of was on the low radar just because I was like, why the hell do we have another Scream sequel? With The Black Phone, the trailer interested me. I was like, okay, let's watch another horror movie, something to do to pass the time or whatever. But it ended up being a lot more interesting than I expected it to be. Ethan Hawke as the main antagonist in this movie, I think he had a really good performance. I think all of the kid actors in this movie did a really great job. The 70s setting and everything, I think, is done really, really well, handled really well. And it even has, outside of just, the main conflict with, kidnappings and stuff like that, it has other, 70s issues that are, in the movie as well that actually kind of play a role in the movie as well, with the abusive father, and then you have, bullies who are, getting very physical and beating up kids in, really, really bad ways and all this kind of stuff. So I think they did a really good, what's his name? Scott Derrickson did a really good job with this movie, and I'm glad that he chose Black Phone over Multiverse of Madness. I'm really glad that Sam Raimi chose to do Multiverse of Madness, and Scott Derrickson chose to do The Black Phone, because I think it made for both of the movies being a lot better than they probably would have been. And yeah, The Black Phone, really good. I would definitely watch this movie again. The ending it's really, really satisfying seeing the kid finally put all the pieces together and learn all the advice from all the other kids who have been kidnapped in the past. I really like how that is all put together. And he ends up escaping successfully and taking down the antagonist for a happy ending. And it's really, really great. This movie really, really did surprise me, and I think it was probably the best horror movie that I watched this year, looking back at the other ones that I watched. So, yeah, Black Phone, one of the movies that definitely exceeded my expectations. Next up, we got Minions: The Rise of Gru, a really fun movie to pass the time. I'm not a huge Minions fan or anything like that, but I did get a decent kick out of this movie. I'm not really sure if I want to put it above or below Sonic 2. Honestly, these two movies could probably just go at the same exact spot with each other, so don't think that either of these movies is better than each other. I had an equally good time with both of them. Minions Rise of Gru, it's, a decent Minions sequel, does its job, gives you a few laughs with some Minions goodness, and nothing really more. It's not a very... it's a very light-hearted movie, and it just does its job. Out of all of the plots that we've had out of the other Minions movies and Despicable Me movies, I think this one was probably the least interesting with our villains in this movie. The Evil Six or whatever they were called in this movie. I liked some of the other villains in the past Minions movies, but the movie worked. It delivers Minions goodness, and that's really all that I needed out of this movie. So I got a kick out of it. And after watching the first Minions movie, I was excited to get a full backstory of what Gru did before he became a villain and everything like that. And so this movie delivered that to me, and it was a solid enough sequel. So it worked really well, and I'm looking forward to watching. I believe they're going to be making another one, a third Minions movie, and then they'll probably be done with Minions stuff for a while, hopefully. Uh, not that I'm annoyed by Minions or anything like that, but yeah, this movie does its job. Very lighthearted, not really a whole lot to talk about. Next up, we got Thor: Love and Thunder, and I really don't know where to put this movie, to be honest. I'm probably going to leave it at the bottom of the C tier, below even Batman, to be honest. This movie is like the polar opposite of the Batman, and I think I enjoyed the Batman more, to be honest with you. I I really did not like Thor: Love and Thunder. Over like at first, I was really generous with this movie, and honestly, this movie has just kept dropping for me more and more. Obviously, Taika Waititi did a great job with Thor Ragnarok, but in this movie, he just takes it way, way too far. Throwing away the Guardians of the Galaxy plot right at the beginning. I mean, I get they probably already had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 planned already, but I would have really liked it if they would have combined Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy and they just threw it away right away to replace it with Gore the God Butcher and female Thor being thrown in the mix as well, and it just none of it worked. Gore completely wasted in this movie. I'm not really interested in his character anyway, but just completely wasted villain that could have been a lot better, and probably could have been used more times with them allegedly doing this whole God God conflict going on in the future. But again, there's so much stuff that is supposed to be happening in the future in the MCU right now. I don't know what direction they're going with, so there's nothing that I can be really excited for, to be honest with you. And then Jane Foster as female Thor, I just did not really enjoy. I mean, Jane Foster, they forgot about her for like how long since Thor: The Dark World. Bring her back in this movie, and it just does not work for me. It's not that I dislike female portrayals of like popular superheroes or anything like that, because in some cases it can work, in most cases it just hasn't. They've just failed miserably. But it's just the fact that like Jane Foster, I just don't care for her. Like, she's been gone for how long, and they bring her back into this movie, and it just doesn't fit well for me, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder, very mediocre, very unfortunate. I was really hoping that they would continue off of the good vibes for these more recent Thor movies, but Taika Waititi just takes it too far with the humor and everything like that, and it just completely ruins the movie for me. So, Thor: Love and Thunder goes in the C tier. We got Nope. I really want to like this movie more, but this is another one that is going to go in this C tier. I'm gonna put it in between the Batman and Thor: Love and Thunder. I think I liked it more than Thor: Love and Thunder, but it wasn't too great. I didn't have super high expectations for this movie. Really, all that I had, all that I had in going into this movie was it's directed by Jordan Peele. He's made Get Out. He's made Us, and so let's give it a try. I liked Jordan Peele as a director. I liked Us. I liked Get Out. I know a lot of people not too big of a fan of Us. I really like that movie. So I was like, let's give Nope a try. It looks like it's got an interesting idea behind it. It looks kind of quirky. I saw like the wacky wavy inflatable tube mans out in the field. I was like, this looks kind of interesting. And there wasn't anything really bad about this movie. I think all of the actors that were involved in this movie did a decent job. It's just this movie is confusing to me. It's really confusing, like what the message is behind it, how the plot's supposed to work, and it just didn't feel too much like a horror movie. I was really hoping that that Jordan Peele would have gone more for the kind of darker end, as opposed to more of like a sci-fi thriller kind of horror movie. I think if he would have kind of gone into a darker tone, I think it would have been a lot better, and I would have enjoyed this movie a lot better. Because you went with a sci-fi thriller, there were times where like it just kind of ruined the whole suspense and everything like that, because you were like, this doesn't really feel like a horror movie. It just feels more like they're trying to catch this mysterious entity or whatever, and like there's not really much of a suspense buildup, because like they're not really worried about it. They're just kind of curious. So yeah, this movie was kind of confusing. And that was really what brought it down for me. And I really wish that it took more of a horror movie vibe as opposed to a sci-fi vibe. But like I said, I think the actors did a pretty good job. But I think it is the weakest out of the Jordan Peele movies. Um, I like the atmosphere. I like the setting. And yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's gonna go in the C tier. Next up, we got Idris Elba in The Beast. I really got a kick out of this movie. It killed an hour and a half, but it was an enjoyable hour and a half. This movie was not made for anything more than being a horror quick flick where you get to see Idris Elba defend his two daughters while taking on this big beast, and it was really enjoyable. It went by quick, and it did a good job. There were some really good moments of suspense, and when you finally do get to see Idris Elba fight the basically lion, the giant lion, it is really enjoyable to watch. I really like Idris Elba as an actor, one of my favorite actors, alongside like Nicolas Cage, for example, and so I really got a kick out of this movie. I like how it's just quick paced. It gets right into the action, and yeah, there's just no messing around. This movie has a priority, and it's just to give you an hour and a half of just pure action thriller horror movie enjoyment. So I really enjoyed The Beast. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. Um, I'm not going to get into the main stuff because I already went into that with my movie review and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's really all there is to say about The Beast. So it goes in at the B tier. I enjoyed it more than Minions and Sonic 2, just because obviously I'm getting older now, so I enjoy kind of more adult movies more than, the kids' movies. So I got a little bit more enjoyment out of this than I did out of Sonic 2 and Minions. But really, all three of them pretty much in the same area, to be honest. So yeah, The Beast goes in at the B tier. Next up, we got Hellraiser 2022, the only movie that I didn't watch in theaters because it was only released on streaming services. Hellraiser, I'm really debating whether or not I want to put it at the top of the B tier or at the bottom of the A tier. I think I am gonna put it at probably the top of the B tier, for right now. Hellraiser 2022, definitely better than I expected, and definitely an improvement from years of horrible, just downright terrible Hellraiser movies. Or Hellraiser, I shouldn't even call them Hellraiser movies, just movies with a sprinkle of Pinhead in them, and they claim that they're Hellraiser movies, and they're just really low-budget, terrible movies. This movie, though, did a pretty good job. I had very low expectations for this movie. I wanted to watch it I was just kind of curious to see. I was like, okay, so they don't have Doug Bradley as Hellraiser in this movie, but I watched it and I liked the plot. I thought it worked well, and I actually liked the portrayal of Hellraiser in this movie, and I think everything just worked really, really well. So it was actually a solid sequel and a very, very big improvement from the years of just terrible Hellraiser movies, from the past, from the past, from the early 2000s to now, basically. So yeah, Hellraiser 2022. Don't really remember a whole lot from it, I do remember giving it a pretty generous score. I believe I gave it like anywhere between like a 6.5 to 8 out of 10. I think I gave it like a 7.5. I can't remember what I gave this movie, but I gave it a pretty generous score. Even I was saying to myself, like, this is very generous, because like it wasn't super, like, this wasn't a super enjoyable movie. Like, by the end I was kind of getting bored. I was like, it's dragging along a little bit. So I was like even saying to myself, like, this is really generous, but I thought it was actually a very good improvement and a really solid Hellraiser movie. So yeah, it's going to go at the top of the B tier. Next up, we got Halloween Ends, and this movie is definitely the most surprising movie of the whole year. And you guys have heard my thoughts about it. I've made it very, very loud and clear, my thoughts on this movie. And, many people ask me, they're like, Gage, I know you're a big Halloween fan. What do you think about Halloween Ends? I heard a lot of negative stuff about this movie. What do you think? Was it one of the worst Halloween sequels? And I was like, no. It was a really solid Halloween sequel. Because if you watched my ranking, I put it at number 6, which is actually more than halfway in the ranking. And so Halloween Ends is going to go at the top of the B tier. Not deserving the A tier in my opinion, but this movie is very bold, and it surprised me, and that's what I really, really like about it. Over the years, I think I'm going to give this movie even more credit for just how bold it is. And I think that's why John Carpenter respects this movie so much. I've seen John Carpenter in interviews about this movie, and he likes the different direction that David Gordon Green went in this movie, and I do too. It's been over 2 months after watching this movie, and I thought about it, and I was like, he could have gone with the thing that everybody was expecting for, which was the final showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, and one of the characters is gonna die or whatever. But he went with something entirely different that exceeded my expectations. And it just delivered for a movie that I would have never expected to ever happen. And I'm gonna long for thinking what direction he should have gone for. But then I think about it and I'm like, we've already had movies like Halloween H2O, and I really like Halloween H2O, and the final showdown in that movie was good enough. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I kind of do appreciate the different direction that he went with in this movie. I think this was one of the best Jamie Lee Curtis performances. I really liked her performance in this movie. They did a really good job with Andi Matichak in this movie. Like in the past few sequels, I wasn't sure about her. In this movie, they did such a great job with her. They really improved on some of the characters that I wasn't such a big fan of that were introduced in the new Halloween 2018 sequel. And so, yeah, I like the main problem of this movie is that there's just not enough Michael Myers. And I think the people who are going to be the people who are going to be the most disappointed are not the Halloween fans, as I see it, like me, but the people who just wanted to go into this movie to just watch Michael Myers kill a bunch of people and all that kind of stuff. Just see some Michael Myers carnage for the last time. I think those are the people who are the most disappointed, and why this movie got a lot of backlash, because that was the majority of the audience. Obviously, a majority of the audience is not dedicated Halloween fans like me, but I was satisfied with this movie. I told you guys before this movie was released, a couple days before, I was like, the one thing that they need to do is be decisive, be bold, and have the balls to frickin' end this franchise, and they did that. If there's a sequel ever to Halloween, it's not going to be related to this one, because this movie had the frickin' balls to end Halloween, actually end it with Michael Myers actually dying, and that was the boldest move by this movie, along with many other bold moves, choosing to not make Michael Myers the main character, and instead have this Corey character be the main character, and I was intrigued by that. I was actually hoping to go into this movie and be scared of what David Gordon Green was going to do. And when I say that, I mean not being scared oh, there's jump scares and all this kind of stuff. But what I mean is scared in the direction that he's going, where I'm watching the movie and I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I'm really worried what is going to happen in this movie. What's going to happen to one of the characters. And so he kept me on the toes the entire movie. Corey, very unpredictable character, just very volatile, and so that worked really well for this movie. So this movie kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, because I was like, what the F am I watching? What the hell is this? I never would have expected this. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it. And I think over the years, I'm probably going to appreciate this movie more and more. At first, I gave this movie, a 7 out of 10. And I think over the years, it's going to grow on me even more. It's already growing on me more and more. So, Halloween Ends, it is sufficient. It did exactly what I told you guys I asked for, and I wasn't going to complain about what they did either way, and I didn't. I went by my word. I said if they do this, I will be satisfied. And what did I say? I'm satisfied with this movie, and Halloween Ends. It satisfied me. Concluded it. Yeah, maybe was it the best decision to include that plot in the last movie of a trilogy? Maybe not. Maybe there should have been some different decisions in terms of where certain plots were placed in the trilogy. But to me, that's more of like a timeline issue more than anything. But on an individual level, I think this is a really solid Halloween movie and horror movie, so it goes at the top of the B tier for me. Definitely the boldest movie of the year. We got Black Adam, and this movie surprised me. I really, really enjoyed Black Adam. It's gonna go at the A tier, bottom of the A tier, but a really, really solid movie. It's unfortunate that this movie is literally useless now because we are getting a completely new DC franchise. So really, really unfortunate because I love Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Again, one of my favorite actors. Um, and so him playing Black Adam in this movie, I really liked it. I thought it was cool. And then it actually got me pumped for Black Adam versus Superman. I wanted to see that. So it's really unfortunate that they're gonna have to start from the ground up again. But got to look at it from the time being, and overall, it was a really good movie. It went quicker than I expected. I think this movie was a little over 2 hours, and it went by like the movie felt like an hour. It went by really really quick for me, and it was really enjoyable, and I liked it. I must have been in a really good mood in that day because I really enjoyed Black Adam, and one of my favorite superhero movies of the year. So yeah, it goes in at the top of the A tier. We got Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think I am going to put this, despite the score that I gave this movie, I think I'm gonna put it. It keeps dropping on me. I think I'm gonna put it at the. Man, I'm gonna put it at the B tier in between Halloween Ends and Hellraiser. I think it's a really well done movie. There's not really any issues that I have with this movie. Um, like I said, I was never really a big Black Panther fan. I was like, I think the only thing that really brought this movie down for me was I didn't think the conflict was all too incredible. I thought Avatar: Way of Water, surprisingly, actually did kind of a variation of this movie's plot that I think actually worked kind of better. So wasn't a big fan of the conflict, but with the hand that they were dealt in this movie, with obviously Chadwick Boseman passing away and them having to figure out something to do with this sequel, they did a very, very great job. They did a lot better than many of these Phase 4 Marvel movies have done. So, I mean, it's really incredible how well they were able to make this movie, despite the hand that they were dealt. So, I really want to put it up at that. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the A tier, below Black Adam, just because I really enjoyed Black Adam. But it's a really, really greatly designed sequel. Despite all of the things that were thrown at them, they managed to create something out of what would have seemed like nothing. And like I said, what makes this movie look a lot better for the hand that it was dealt is the fact that you've had all of these extremely mediocre or just downright bad Phase 4 movies that have came out in the past 2 years. And then you look at a movie like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, where you literally have the main actor passing away. You think this movie is just done for. Like there's no way it's going to succeed, and it did a great job. It did better than most of the other movies in Phase 4. So really incredible. I surprisingly liked the humor in this movie. There was actually some pretty good humor in this movie. Ironheart, not a huge fan, but wasn't annoying or anything, so liked her. And then Shuri as kind of the replacement for Black Panther, not a huge fan of that. But then again, they're sort of passing it on to the younger kid now. If you watch the end credit scene, that's what it seems like the direction they're going into. So, I like the only problem for me in this movie is one, the conflict didn't really pique my interest that much, but two, Shuri just kind of being the full replacement for T'Challa, I thought they could have done something different there. Other than that, really, really solid Black Panther movie. We got Violent Night, which was the last movie that I watched this year. I watched this a couple of days ago, and I'm glad I didn't miss it. I wanted a 20th movie to watch this year, and Violent Night was like the only thing that I had left that was interested in me, that's in the theaters right now, and I really got a kick out of Violent Night. I am gonna put it in. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna put it in the B tier in between Hellraiser and Halloween Ends. It killed 2 hours. It was a really, really enjoyable movie. Obviously it's supposed to be like kind of like a comedic, horror movie, or not even really a horror, comedic action movie, and it was really awesome. I loved it. The family, obviously, basically the whole family is just a bunch of rich douchebags, to be honest with you. But that's what makes this movie so funny. And then you got the heist and his whole crew and everything like that, and just some really good comedy in this movie. Even the kind of the Santa and then the little girl in this movie, like their connection and their dialogue in this movie is kind of cute sometimes and heartwarming. So that it's kind of like the little bit of seriousness that this movie has, and it's actually kind of a little bit wholesome. Even though this movie is a comedic action movie that is definitely not made for kids. So yeah, really enjoyable movie. Killed 2 hours, and just seeing Santa get to kill a bunch of men who are trying to steal all this money was really fun to see. And then the whole douchebag rich family, just seeing them like get tormented, and then all the funny shit that they do in this movie. It's just really, really fun to watch. Especially that teenage boy in this movie who's like this vlogger and stuff like that. He was annoying, but like in a funny and good way. Like you were like, can somebody kill this piece of shit already? He doesn't end up dying in the movie, but he has this like funny end credit scene that I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, Violent Night, I really got a kick out of it. Really enjoyed it. A nice holiday movie to watch. And it's still kind of the holidays because we haven't had New Year's yet. So really enjoyed it. And last but certainly not least, we got Avatar: The Way of Water, which was not the last movie that I watched this year. Like I said, it was Violent Night, but I did this list in order of movies and in the release date, in which Avatar: The Way of Water came out after. And Avatar: The Way of Water is going to go up in the S tier, below Top Gun Maverick. It's probably going to make more money than Top Gun Maverick, just because, I mean, Top Gun Maverick stayed in theaters for a while, but obviously China took it off their market, so that took away probably like $500 million that could have made. So Avatar: Way of Water, it's probably going to make more money than Top Gun Maverick, but I do not think it is as good as Top Gun Maverick. But it certainly paid off for the hype for at least this year for the Avatar sequel. Maybe not for the 13 years we've been waiting for an Avatar sequel, in which I didn't even know that they were going to be making an Avatar sequel until until they released the trailer. So, or actually about a year and a half ago, maybe. And so, for people who have been anticipating a sequel for 13 or so years, probably didn't live up to the hype of that much, but still a really, really solid sequel. It plays out in 3 parts, and despite it being over 3 hours long, every minute of it was enjoyable. There was never a moment where I thought it was like dragging along and it should have been shorter or whatever. I thought it actually went by pretty quickly. It was 3 hours long, but it only felt like a 2 hour long movie, to be honest with you. And I really enjoyed it. I like some of the the first act is probably the least enjoyable one, just because it's kind of like just a prologue. You get to kind of see what they're doing after the events of the first movie. And then the second act is where things start to get good, where they meet the new tribe and they start to learn, the way of water, basically. And then the third act, where we get, full on action the whole time, and it's really, really awesome to see. And yeah, just all pays off in the end with just full on action. Get some scenes of suspense as well, which was kind of surprising. Some scenes where you're kind of like worried that one of the characters is, something bad is going to happen to him. So that kind of surprised me as well. Like I said in my movie review, only complaint that I have about this movie that drops it down a little bit is that Spider character. I did not like him in this movie. I thought he was a huge nuisance, and I really am not looking forward to seeing him in the future. So other than that, Avatar: The Way of Water, it's gonna be a huge blockbuster. It's already made almost $1 billion, and it's only been out for what, like 2 weeks. So yeah, it's gonna be an absolute blockbuster. Probably gonna destroy the box office. We'll see if it beats the first Avatar film. I'm really rooting for it too. So yeah, Avatar: The Way of Water, second best movie of the year for me. That is going to be it for the tier list. I really enjoyed doing that and talking about some of the movies that I missed talking about for this year for you guys. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that tier list, and looking forward to watching a new arsenal of movies going into 2023. Not a whole lot of big movies that I can think of yet that are coming out in the year. Just pretty much the usual stuff. A few new Marvel movies. We got another Fast and Furious movie, I believe. We got a new Scream sequel. So there's quite a bit, but nothing super big that I can think of that I'm like really highly anticipating. Mainly just the usual stuff that I'm used to in every year of cinema. So 2022, is it an improvement from last year's movies? I think so. I think there were a lot better movies that came out in 2022 than 2021. Um, Spider-Man: No Way Home, probably the only blockbuster of 2021, and also probably the only movie that I watched that year that was like really, really, really good. And so yeah, 2022, pretty solid year for movies. There was a lot at stake this year for movies that I wanted to watch. Obviously, you had Top Gun: Maverick, the summer blockbuster that people were highly anticipating. Not me, but other people who were Top Gun fans and who had been hearing about this movie potentially coming out in the past few years. You had Avatar: The Way of Water at the ending of the year. Halloween fans and even casual fans who were excited for Halloween Ends. So yeah, there was a lot of good stuff that came out this year. Very solid year for movies. Maybe not a whole lot of blockbusters. I mean, I would say the only two blockbusters this year were really Top Gun and Avatar. You had a few movies that were making it kind of high up there, but I wouldn't really consider them blockbusters. But overall, 2022, really enjoyed the year, and I hope you guys have a happy new year as well. There's a lot of new fun stuff to come in 2023, which I'm really excited for. So stay tuned, like and subscribe, guys. I hope you have a good new year, and I will see you next time.